Matt Lenihan for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and our Kings. We've been joined by the one and only Dan Rafael. Dan, before we kick this thing off, how are we doing, my friend?
Doing good, my man. It's always a pleasure to be on with you, Matt.
No, I appreciate it. Look, just before we start properly, make sure you subscribe to Dan's newsletter, Fight Freaks Unite. The link, as always, will be in the YouTube description. Will also be in the Twitter post that we do, Instagram stories. So make sure you check that out and give it a subscribe. All the latest news. Look, let's start with some of your news because that's where I heard it first. I'm pretty sure you were the original source. Anyway, we'll say even if it wasn't. It says per three sources involved. Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney was agreed Tuesday night, but not signed for August 16th in Riyadh at £145. But the fight is now in jeopardy after Teofimo's latest Twitter rant, basically. What's happened here then? Is this a case of Teo's gone off on one and all of a sudden Turkey's like, we're not playing then. We don't have to, we'll put someone else in. What's happened?
Well, I don't know if that's going to be the actual outcome. I think everybody involved, I guess, is trying to salvage the fight. Uh, Look, I did write about that. I did make that point this morning. I didn't. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that wrote that, but that's 100%. I mean, I have it from a variety of people that are involved, so to speak, in the room, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But look, we all kind of knew that after the terrible performance from Ryan Garcia a couple of weeks ago, combined with Haney not looking good either, even though he was the winner of his fight, that to try to do that rematch as originally planned in the fall was going to be a little bit of a mountain to climb, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Then it became, even more unlikely because just on Tuesday, Ryan Garcia had surgery on his right hand, which was the hand that was injured that caused him to withdraw from the exhibition bout in December, and then injured it again in the fight. So the bottom line was that was going to be probably a difficult thing to do when you're not even sure what his exact prognosis is, how long he's going to be out. Plus, look, it's a hard sell. So they had to go to plan B. Now, Teofimo wanted to fight Jaron Boots Ennis, the welterweight champion.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of conversation about that. Turkey had interest in the fight. And it got to a point where, again, I've not heard this from the Boots side, from Matchroom or whatever, but I'm told that in the end, Ennis decided that was a no-go. And that was the fight that Teofimo really wanted. And they had agreed, I guess, at least on, I don't know if the exact dollar figure, but they knew sort of the range of what they were going to make for that fight. And when the Ennis fight was not there, the money for the alternative, which was Haney, which is still a reasonable bout,
Yeah.
was maybe not quite the exact same as what would have been there for the Boots Ennis fight. And so it feels like Teofimo kind of agreed to the Haney fight, but got kind of irritated that the money wasn't quite the same. And that sent him off the cliff into writing all the crazy tweets. And I saw the videos he did that, Turkey fired him, or I got fired from boxing. I mean, he's kind of maybe lost his mind a little bit. So the bottom line is, whereas the Haney camp, from what I am told, was good to go, agreed to, all set, let's do it. Then it became a little bit of a problem because I would imagine that Turkey was not too pleased by the things that Teofimo not only posted, but clearly, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, understood at some point it was not proper for him to do that and ended up deleting one of the tweets. And so I guess they're going to try to salvage the fight.
There's a couple of things from this. So the point you just made there. So I watched the press conference for, I think it was, but I want to say Balanga, Shiraz, and Shakur Stevenson Zepeda. Turkey phones in, I think, and says, "Look, I want to make Teofimo Lopez, Jaron Boots Ennis." So I thought we're going down straight down the lines. That then I see your post, and I'm like, "Holy shit, we've completely veered off that way." So in terms of Teofimo, is this literally just a case in your mind of him not being happy with the dollar figure? And do you think the fact that a lot of people have been saying a lot of these fighters are getting almost too much money? And look, that's not me saying that because I
It's
think
okay
every
to say
fighter
that, Matt.
needs that.
They're getting
No,
coddled and overpaid for lack of performance. It's okay to say that. They may not
but
like you saying that. I don't care if they like me for saying it.
what I mean from my point of view is for me to say a fighter gets overpaid, I don't realistically they can lose their life in the ring. So I don't want to say anyone's getting overpaid, but I understand in terms of a commercial aspect, maybe they're getting paid more than what they used to. But is that what the issue is here, where you're used to a certain amount, and when that's maybe slightly dips a bit or dips to what you're expecting, the expectations almost too much?
I mean, I don't know if I'd say that. I'm not really sure if what the issue is exactly. I assume because it's boxing that it's most definitely financially related. Now, you mentioned about how when Turki Al-Sheikh called into the press conference that they did in New York City, and he brought up the possibility of Ennis against Teofimo, which is the fight that he wanted. That wasn't like the first time he said that. That he had been saying that for a while. That was a fight that a lot of people were interested in. Teofimo went out and got the victory earlier in May, and seemed to be that might be what was on tap because, and again, I had written this however long ago. The original plan was if Teofimo won his fight on that Times Square card, which he did, and Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney won their fights and they did the rematch, that the Teofimo next bout would be on that same card, and that and this is not me reporting this is Turki putting it on his own social media. What he wanted to do was have Haney and Garcia in the rematch, and on the same event also have Teofimo moving up to welterweight to challenge Ennis for the title. That's obviously a big time doubleheader. And then we saw what happened on Times Square, where Ryan lost and looked terrible, and Devin won and looked terrible, and Teofimo won and looked pretty good, but Ennis apparently didn't want to go for the fight, so that kind of got all messed up, and the money obviously becomes a factor. And I'm not one to say that a fighter gets overpaid to the standpoint like don't get what you can get, but you have to also be in the reality of the world. I mean, you have to produce also to make that kind of money. And those guys didn't show anything in those fights. Not Teofimo, he looked pretty good, but I'm talking about like Haney and even Ryan Garcia. And it's like, that there's just unlimited funds to do these events. They don't even generate that big of dollars. I mean, it's just the reality of life. So you're still going to get highly paid, but some fighters think they should get paid more, and that's their prerogative. And if they don't like what they're offered, they don't have to fight.
A lot of people were critical. Obviously, you mentioned there of Devin after the last fight. People saying he looked gun shy, almost afraid to engage. But for him to accept that fight and look, he's getting handsomely paid. And look, he said, look, we didn't even have to negotiate. We were happy with the first number. So they are getting paid well. But he said yes straight away to Teofimo Lopez. That says quite a lot about Devin, who, after that last fight, people, were still got a lot of question marks over him. And if he's still got this trauma from the Ryan Garcia experience, but there was no doubt on his end, he was bang set for this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this: you have to be able, I think, to separate your not you personally, but anybody's opinion about how a particular fighter fought in a fight. Like, take for example the way Haney fought against Ramirez in that fight that was such a bad fight. But there's also the willingness of him to do that. So you can do two things at the same time. Two things can be true at once. So it's very fair to criticize Devin Haney for the performance against Jose Ramirez. It's also okay at the same time to, give him props and pat him on the back for saying that we know you're a guy that will fight anybody. He's not turning down fights. This is a guy that took the Garcia fight. There's a guy that went to George Kambosos' home country and fought him twice in Australia, and didn't try to get out of the deal the second time when they did the rematch. This is a guy that's raised his hand every time. He's the one that wanted to fight Lomachenko. It wasn't him that gave up the title to become a franchise champion. So I have all the respect in the world for Haney's desire to fight the best guy, but that doesn't mean I can't keep it real and be critical because the performance against Ramirez was, below, the normal standards of a Devin Haney fight. We can be complimentary of how awesome he looked against Regis Prograis. There's ups and downs. You're going to be judged on what happens in the ring.
I suppose the only real when I'm reading all these stories and I think about how I connect all the dots. I interviewed Brian Norman Jr. last week, and when the press conference had happened, he'd not even been aware of Turki saying we're making the fight, trying to make the fight between Teo and Boots. So he was like, "So wait a minute, Eddie's saying this, Turki's saying that," and he's frustrated. But right now, Boots needs a dance partner. He has a belt. That opens the door surely now for that fight to get made, and it's a good fight.
Listen, they were supposedly trying to talk the Matchroom side, trying to talk to the Norman side about making a deal for a fight later this year. And understandably, the Norman people are a little conservative in what they do. I can't blame them. He has quality management, and Top Rank is his promoter. They know what they're doing. And the management were like, look, we want that fight, but we're not going to sit here and make a match when we have a dangerous opponent in front of us, and we're going to Japan in the next week or so. As soon as that fight's over with, come talk to us. What's the big deal? If you're not going to be doing the fight until, I don't know the exact time frame, of when they would be doing that. Pardon, my phone is going off here.
That's fine.
I don't know if they're going to, what the time frame is, but there's absolutely no reason, since it's not going to be, you got to figure to at least like September, October at the earliest.
Mm-hmm.
What's the big problem about waiting until after you fight the fight in Japan and then talk about it? So there was no, it's a fake deadline is what that was. And sometimes when you see a fake deadline, that's like they're beating their chest like they really want to do the fight, and maybe they don't really want to do the fight. I don't have any doubt that Ennis himself, that he'd like to do the fight. Not so sure about the rest of the teams.
It's an interesting dynamic now with obviously everything that's happening with Saudi and how all the promotions are coming together. Do you believe that with everything that's gone on surrounding this sort of outburst with Teo online, that cooler heads will prevail and we will get this fight over the line? Because Teo and Devin's on paper, it's a good fight. I think it's a good fight, big fight.
Well, I mean, I don't know how big the fight is. I mean, I don't really think a fight like that does a lot of pay-per-view, to be quite honest with you. It's not a bad fight, but maybe I just have a bad taste in my mouth from what happened in the Times Square event. So whether they get it done or not, that's going to be up to, what Teofimo and his team do. And if Haney's still on board, which I think he is, and obviously, the one that makes the ultimate call is going to be Turkey and what they decide to do about this whole situation. So I'm not clairvoyant. I can't tell you for sure if it's going to get done. Based on what's available for both of those fighters in the fall, you'd kind of hope it gets done, I guess. But I mean, I'll tell you another thing about it. The fact that they were looking to do the fight on August 16th, that sort of irritates me, because that's the date that's already well known for another pay-per-view that's going to be the Tank Davis Lamont Roach event. I don't think boxing needs two pay-per-views on the same day. And I'll again, if they're going to do the fight, and even if they're not on the same day, even if they went on Friday, you're still talking about two pay-per-views in the same weekend. And if they do it the same way they did with Canelo for the American-based audience, that means fighting, doing the main fight at like 5, 6 in the morning. That leaves a lot to be desired in terms of the crowd that would be, there. They're half asleep. It's just a bad situation for everybody. And by the way, it's going to be like 130 degrees in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in the middle of August.
Yeah. July 19th as well. There's a triple header. You got Bam Rodriguez fighting in Frisco, Manny Pacquiao fighting in Las Vegas, and Usyk Dubois in London.
Terrible.
So what do you do?
I mean, listen, you can't. Here's the thing: even if you like somebody like myself, I'm gonna probably go to the Pacquiao fight, but I obviously want to watch the Usyk and Dubois fight, right? Yeah. Obviously, want to watch Bam in the unification, and still have interest to see what the old man and Pacquiao's got left, and have a really good undercard that they're putting together for an event like that. So even if you are going to be willing to buy two pay-per-view events, the Bam fight's part of your regular DAZN subscription, but even if you want to buy both pay-per-views, and even if you're a diehard, I don't love the idea of having literally like 10 hours of boxing in the day. I'm good with like a few hours, fine. But I got other things in life to do. I mean, I'm going to sit in front, because here in America, I can't speak for the timing everywhere else, but in the United States, you're talking about the Usyk pay-per-view would probably start at like, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, thereabouts. Going to run up till like around 6 o'clock or so for the main event. You might have like a half an hour in between fights or something like that, and you're going to already have the undercard for the other event starting. And it's going to be going on simultaneous to the Bam Rodriguez event. So it's just an absolute clusterfuck in terms of how they schedule these things.
What are you making now? Obviously, the Pacquiao fight, the poster came out. We knew it was happening, but like poster come out. We've seen Manny now in training, a few clips of him. It's sort of, I don't want to say gain a mixed reaction. It's been kind of one way in the UK. Everyone's saying it's shouldn't happen. He's skipping the queue and 46 years of age. But as it's sort of creeping and you're seeing the videos, it does make you think. Like, I'm looking at this now from a selfish point of view, going, I really want to see if he can do this.
I mean, that's not my particular mentality. I mean, in terms of skipping the queue, I've said this numerous times, since this fight has been made. He's an all-time legend, and membership in that status of fighters that has the privileges. So yeah, he's going to skip the queue. That's life. It's not all merit-based. You get it because of your reputation, because of your legacy, because of your fame, because of your popularity, because of your notoriety, because of what you've meant to the sport. So it was wrong of the WBC to rank him number 5. I actually preferred what Mauricio Suleiman came out and said after they did that. He says, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have ranked him and just given him the shot. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I can definitely live with that. I mean, anybody that's going to bitch and moan, the guys that they think are somehow being aggrieved that they're being cut in front of. Look, Mario Barrios is not in a mandatory position right now. He fought a fight, just at the end of last year.
Yeah.
Now he's in a period where he can fight whoever he wants. This is not something new. They said that at the convention in December. And if you have the opportunity to fight Manny Pacquiao at age 46 off a 4-year layoff, why in the world, if you're Barrios, wouldn't you do that?
100%.
And the WBC, they're not going to say no to somebody like Manny Pacquiao. I get it. I mean, everybody got to grow the fuck up.
I want to talk
I
about.
I live in the real world.
No, you do. It's just it's. This is why I like speaking to you, because obviously it's such a different perspective when we speak to people, and then you speak to people across the pond. It's just different. So it's nice to get both sides of the.
I don't think this is an issue that has anything to do with whether I come from America or I was living in Britain. I think it's common sense, to tell you the truth. I mean, I understand that there's probably, you could go find 1,000 people, all over boxing in America that are not particularly loving the fact that Manny Pacquiao is fighting for a world title at age 46, that didn't do anything to earn the shot, obviously. But, because of his legend status, that's what happens. And we can talk about plenty of fighters through the years that have come back and gotten opportunities when they may not have necessarily warranted it, just the way the business goes.
Obviously, we're hearing, you mentioned there about Tank and Lamont Roach, August 16th. Hearing anything more on that in the background, that it's definitely done, it's signed, we're waiting for posters and an official announcement, because that's what we're waiting for. I know Gervonta posted, I think, on his social media for the first time in a long time, not fight related, but seemingly, hopefully, we're moving towards that date now to getting it announced.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's a good way to point it. I mean, as far as it being signed, they had the rematch was in the original agreement, so they didn't have to go negotiate a whole deal. I mean, I guess the date was still something that they were going to, be able to set in stone when they got around to it. One thing I would be willing to bet you on is that they're not going to go announcing August 16th until they do a formal announcement of the Pacquiao and Barrios fight. So, given that Caleb Plant and Charlo are fighting this weekend in Las Vegas on a PBC card, it wouldn't shock me at all. Not my first time seeing something like this happen, where they'll announce the fight during the broadcast. They'll probably have the guys in Vegas maybe to talk to some of the press folks that are out there. And then I would imagine sometime next week or thereabouts, they'll do the full blast press conference. They'll go to Los Angeles. They'll have the big thing. They'll get that announced. They'll start the hype on it. And then as that gets closer, they'll take the opportunity to announce the Tank and Roach fight. That's my assessment of sort of reading the tea leaves and having followed this script numerous times.
Yeah, exciting though. Big fights to come. Sugar Nunez, you mentioned you watched his performance today from obviously your side. What do you make of him? One dangerous man, and look, he's picked up a belt today. And look, Eddie Hearn, I think, spoke today about wanting to make the fight with Cacace from this side. Was coming off a good win over Lee Wood. How impressed were you with Sugar Nunez today?
I mean, Sugar Nunez is a tough out for anybody, but the reality is that, he could have made the Cacace fight before the Lee Wood fight, because, he ended up giving up, Cacace gave up the IBF title because Nunez was the mandatory, and they could have had that fight then. Now, maybe they think it's bigger because of how good he looked, and Cacace would have the chance to win back the belt, but Cacace, I'd be a little surprised if that happened. Cacace made it very clear when he took the fight with Lee Wood and when he vacated the title that it was about the money, that, at his age and what he had. And I don't blame him for that, by the way. Nunez was not a known guy, was a tough out. Lee Wood was probably a much more winnable fight, and more significantly, it was a much more lucrative fight. So from that standpoint, I mean, I couldn't blame Cacace for vacating to take that. So I'd be a little surprised. Now, maybe it's doable, but I'm not really sure what's changed that much since what we saw, other than that now Nunez has a belt that used to belong to Cacace, and it wasn't like he beat in Rashiki some big name opponent that suddenly he became that much bigger of a name. I mean, they can say, they want, a new star is born. Well, a new star wasn't born because the fight was on at like 5 o'clock in the morning in the United States and even earlier in Britain. So, let's all just contain ourselves a little bit. He's a tremendous fighter, though. It was a heck of a fight, a really good performance, and you can count me as a Sugar Nunez fan. But, I believe it when I see Cacace step in the ring with him.
Yeah, I think the talk had been that, obviously, before, rightly so as well, you mentioned, Lee Wood, especially in Britain and the UK, he has, like I said, he's a recognisable name.
Sure.
And maybe he looked at that, and with all due respect to Lee at this stage of his career, he looked and said, I'm probably getting an extra few $100,000 from what I was told. So more winnable fight. Why would I bother doing that now? After this win, after beating Lee, after picking up his money already, he may now look and go, it's probably worth it now, because now there is that belt on the line, though. So, like, he's sort of sidestepped, but done it in a way where now maybe it's more attractive.
That could be, and maybe, you know what, maybe he'll do the fight, and if so, it's just you know, the shoes on the other foot. Where instead of Cacace coming in with the title, it's Nunez coming in with the title, and it'd be a perfectly fine fight. The bottom line is whether Nunez is fighting Cacace or he's fighting anybody else at 130 pounds, whoever stands on the other side of the ring from him is in for a very long or perhaps very short night.
Yeah, I'm going to say Shaki Foster, Navarrete. There's some good fights between feather and super.
Well,
feather.
Navarrete is probably doing the rematch with Charlie Suarez.
Mm-hmm.
We'll wait to see what the commission in California says about their hearing that comes up at the beginning of June. And O'Shaki Foster, they've been in the process of trying to get the deal for Stephen Fulton to move up from 26 to 30 to challenge him. So we'll see if they can actually put that. I mean, if it happens, that's supposed to be on the Tank Davis Roach undercard if they get everything squared away. So I don't think we're going to see either of those guys challenging Nunez anytime soon in a unification.
And finally, are you going to Caleb Plant fight this weekend? Be watching it?
I'm watching it for sure. I mean, I had a chance to talk to Caleb several days ago for an interview, and we'll certainly be watching that fight. But honestly, I'm not anti the show or anything like that. But you know, when he's fighting Charlo, if that comes to pass, which is the whole purpose of this doubleheader, to have them get back in the ring and look good for the public, and they'll make the fight. When they fight each other, I'll go to that fight. But you know, nothing against the warm-up fights, but I'll save my time and money.
Absolutely. Well, look, looking forward. Definitely, when that fight gets made, we'll be over for that, and we'll catch up in person as well. Look, thank you for giving us some of your time again. You always jump on. For the viewers at this end, make sure you subscribe to Dan's newsletter. We say it time and time again, but the link's in the description. It'll be plastered all over our social media, and we'll do our best to support. Appreciate your time, Dan, as always. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.